Really appreciate it.
That would be a step above. All right, if not, I'll just talk really loud. Welcome to the finale of this year's 2021 Natural Born Pilot Session. Just for all of you, this is the culmination of a year of very focused, kind of collaborative, peer involved educational process. Ends with every one of the pilots giving a very short TED Talk. As you might imagine, for many, this is a very nerve-wracking thing to kind of get up in front of an audience, and in some ways, several of you have done this in the past, so you remember very well how that feels. It is always awesome. It's fun because if you ask Michael and Jen, every year when they look at the evaluations, if you do evaluations before this session, this lowest rated thing that the whole TED Talk thing and having to get up. But when you do back after this, number one thing. So this has really been an amazing year, unprecedented as with all of the pandemic, and the fact that we have really had to gather, I think, only one. Nonetheless, really captured that spirit of collaboration, fellowship between all of the pilots. All of them, this is the beginning of their journey. Truly, and have been truly. So I just want to kind of kick this off. We've got who's going to give a couple comments as well. So I won't introduce her because, well, as the David Letterman show goes, this guest needs no introduction.
Good morning. I just need to thank Dan and Michael for the invitation to return to see this cohort of natural born pilots complete their flight today. You are in for a treat. The talks today are extraordinary. They always have been, and then they just keep raising the bar on the insightfulness of our team members. So what I wanted to share with you today was just a little, couple of minutes on fear. I've been doing leadership development for a really long time, and before I knew how to do it. Finished residency, thought I knew a whole bunch of stuff. It turns out that was not really true. But started a leadership development class for chief residents, for medical students, and built these programs and curriculum, went over to the Department of Health, started a leadership development program there, and felt pretty good about all of those. Walked in first day at FSSA, and suddenly you're in a really big place with a lot of people all over the state, and thought, well, this is actually really too scary. And so we're just going to try to do the job well, because there's lots of opportunities to be afraid. And so I remember very vividly sitting with Michael and talking about this one thing that seemed to be missing, which was how are we going to invest in the next cohort of leaders at FSSA when they were so big and so spread out, and it just was a really scary and daunting process. And he looked at me like he always does and said, we just need to start. And so we did. And so we are now so many cohorts into this group and now have a fellowship of people who believe in themselves and each other and transmit that belief in themselves and each other to all of us. Because at some point, even when you're afraid, you just have to get started. And Eleanor Roosevelt knew that better than anyone else. And she said, do one thing every day that scares you. And so walking out of this amazing place and all of the things that you have given me, the first thing I did on day one at my new job was start a leadership development program, because sometimes you just have to get started. Great job, everyone. It's so exciting to be home, and I'm looking forward to the amazing talks today. Thank you so much for having me back.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Bale, and I'm a policy developer with the Coverage and Benefits team of OMPP. And one of the topics that we touched on was a topic of mentorship in this Natural Born Pilot series. And at first, I really had difficulty thinking of a mentor who had been influential in my life. But after some deep thinking, I realized I did in fact had a mentor, and that was a professor I had while I was a student at Michigan State University, who I'll be nicknaming here as Professor S. And I think really the reason why it was difficult for me to identify that she in fact was my mentor was because, as this lovely winter scene here kind of demonstrates, her attitude towards me was kind of frosty. She did not like me very much. When I first started at MSU, I had a mentality that was similar to a lot of other students, which was, what is the easiest way for me to get an A? However, I quickly realized that that was not how I was going to fly in Professor S's class. Her class, which was a class on humanities, centering on identity and community, while it was very engaging, also required a lot of studying, a lot of reading, and a lot of writing, and a lot of grappling with some difficult to understand concepts. When we got our first essays back, I was shocked at how poorly I had done in the class. So I quickly discovered and realized I need to become best friends with this professor. I need to get on her good side. So I started attending her office hours. I frequently participated in class, basically tried to become the teacher's pet, and that was not going to help me, and that did not impress her very much either. But in pursuing those office hours, while my motives might not have been the best originally, I learned so much in that one-on-one discussion time with my professor. I was able to better understand the concepts that were discussed in class. I was able to improve and develop as a writer, and ultimately, I really came to love her class. I learned more than I ever thought in pursuing that mentorship. I fell in love with the topic of social relations and policy, which I ended up studying the rest of my 4 years, and I took multiple of classes with Professor S, such as immigrant minorities and American pluralism, social theory, social policy, and advanced topics in public affairs. And when I decided to enter grad school, she was the first letter of recommendation I obtained. I still wasn't her favorite. In fact, I think she rolled her eyes at how often I was knocking on her office door. However, she recognized my tenacity, a tenacity that went from I'm determined to get an A in this class to instead of tenacity of I want to do everything I can to improve. So from all of this, I took the following from the mentorship. One is that your mentor might not be who you expect. And I think this goes twofold in that your mentor might be an individual in your life who maybe you previously didn't realize was your mentor, or maybe your mentor was a person that you weren't necessarily best friends with or someone who you really liked. Even though me and Professor S were by no means besties, she possessed the skills and knowledge that I needed to benefit from. And our mentorship worked because it was still built on the pillars that made it effective, which was mutual respect. I respected her as a professor. She respected me as a student. Trust. I trusted that she was going to give me fair grades. And she trusted that the work that I delivered was of the quality that I was capable of. Shared values. That became me improving in her class, and then also good communication, which was basically me bugging her all the time. There's also that success is measured in different ways. Originally, I thought that success was me getting an A in the class, but quickly that was shot down as soon as I got that first essay back. And it instead became, how do I build upon myself and better myself in this class instead? Lastly, is that growth can be and often is difficult. It is much easier not to be great. It is easier to stay in your comfort zones. It's less stressful to not have to challenge yourself, but it's very difficult to improve if you don't take those steps. If you don't push yourself to improve, it's impossible to grow and be your best. So thank you so much for giving me your time. And I invite the audience members to think of an individual in your lives who maybe at first you didn't recognize was a mentor, but in fact was, and also what were the lessons that you learned from that person. Thank you.
everybody. Andrew Bean, Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. So let's talk about the Beatles. Greatest band of all time, right? And there might be some of you in the audience who might disagree with me. That's okay, you're wrong. It's okay. What always fascinates me about the Beatles, though, is they were this iconic band that had so many good songs and so many albums, and they were so successful. And they, with literally the silliest band name of all time, the Beatles. Not B-E-E-T-L-E-S, but B-E-A-T-L-E-S, like a beat in a song, because we're a band. That's cool, right? It's like, But we don't even think about that when we think about the Beatles, right? We think of all of the iconic songs and all of the great albums that they made. And so it's like, yeah, the Beatles, good band. We do this every day with our own names, and we build our names every day. And how we build our names affects how people perceive them over time. When I was born, my father wanted to name me Harold Edwin Bean III. Mother, my hero for this and many other reasons, put her foot down and said no. And Harold Edwin Bean Jr., son of Harold Edwin Bean Sr., was understandably upset. He thought this name was very important. He was a lawyer. He was a big tent Reagan Republican in the 80s. And he loved his name. And the problem wasn't that he loved his name. The problem was that he thought his name was enough. And when you think your name is enough, you stop working at it. You stop trying to be better. You stop trying to improve. You stop working on noticing what other people are doing. You stop being self-aware, and you stop learning from your mistakes. And so when my father died, he had lost most of his family and friends, disbarred, and indicted and convicted of embezzlement and official misconduct. Harold Edwin Bean Jr., a man who thought he would be president, was not that anymore. And do I think I would have been okay had I been Harold Edwin Bean III? Sure. Because you make the name doesn't make you. So take care of the name, take care of your names. Be proud of your names, but know that you have to maintain them over time. And the work that you do every day, day in and day out, builds your name and structures the perception of your name. So just take care of your name. And maybe in the end, remember the words of John Lennon, which I don't believe in Beatles, I just believe in me. It's good advice.
Hello, and good morning. My name is Mary Bennett. I'm passionate about health equity. My talk today is about intersectionality. This is my grandpa. He's so full of love. He's loved by many in our family and our community. He's a great chef, and he loves good food more than anyone I know. He had a tough couple of years. He was hospitalized with COVID. He has since made a recovery. But at one point, he was in the emergency room and received inadequate care that almost cost him his life. Luckily, my mother, who is a nurse, was there to advocate for him, and she saved his life. I can't say for certain the cause of his poor care that day, but I do know that his experience as an African immigrant and a man who can barely speak English greatly impacts his experiences in the healthcare system. Evidence shows that racial and ethnic minorities far too often have poor health outcomes. Too many people are sick and dying every day due to health inequities. The good news is that more equitable patterns of health are possible. Health equity is when everyone has the opportunity to be as healthy as possible. There are many paths to health equity. We can use data to inform programs and policies. We can measure average levels of health, and that's important, but it can mask large disparities within subgroups. In order to improve outcomes for everyone, we need to examine the social factors that impact and shape our health. That's why intersectionality is so important. Intersectionality is an approach that explores the interaction between different social categories like race, ethnicity, class, gender. It allows for deeper understanding of the inequities that cause, it allows for deeper understanding of health inequities, which will inform more targeted policies and procedures. More often than not, I see in the data that outcomes are reported just by race or just by gender, but people aren't just one thing. I'm not just an African American or just a woman. I'm a highly educated, middle-class African American who was born in Eritrea. And that makes my experience very complex. And that identity offers me varying levels of privilege and power, but I also face discrimination and oppression. Although my mother faces multiple layers of oppression, being an African immigrant and also a woman, she was able to use her power that day in the emergency room to save my grandpa's life. And we all have some power to help promote equity. Each and every one of us should be using that power to advance equity. The burden is not only on those minority groups who are most impacted, but those with power and privilege should be using that power to advocate for others. In my opinion, the most important thing each and every one of us should be doing is educate ourselves and understand that it's not always easy. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable, acknowledging bias. You should be amplifying the voices of marginalized communities and also just listen. Listen to others, learn from them. They're the ones living the complex identities each and every day. I think it's also important to recognize when diversity or difference is not represented around you, and try to increase that diversity in the spaces that you occupy. Do the work, show up in a way that matters. My hope is that we all make an intentional effort to use an intersectional lens to help promote equity, to give my grandpa and others the opportunity to live as healthy as possible. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is, my name is Amy DeYoung. Thank you, Michael. All right. Okay. Again, my name is Amy DeYoung. I'm a project manager associate with DST, the Division of Strategies and Technology. I've worked for FSSA now for over 14 years. And in my time, I've been on a few projects and served a few of our divisions. And I currently assist in supporting our state psychiatric hospitals within DMHA, the Division of Mental Health and Addiction. Today, I'd like to bring up the topic of respect in the workplace, especially when we don't agree. If the year 2020 and into 2021 has showed me anything, it is that we all have a difference of opinion on just about everything, right? Like how much toilet paper is really the appropriate amount to purchase during a pandemic? I know we all have a difference of opinion on that. I'm certain that most of us in this room have an opinion about one thing or another, whether it's personal or professional, and I can almost bet that some of us have been in a disagreement with someone else due to that opinion. But just because we have a difference in our opinions and our views, whether they be within these walls or outside of these walls, does that mean we should treat each other with disrespect just because we may not agree? As I began looking into this topic, I started thinking about my own experience with the state of Indiana. When I first started, I would tend to shy away from voicing my opinion or my view in fear of rejection from my new colleagues and managers. So I kept quiet, didn't say much. And I know for some of you that know me, you find that hard to believe, but it's true. As I began working on one particular project with some individuals that I had really never worked with before, including contractors, I began to feel that they were truly listening to what I had to say and they saw what I had to offer. I began to trust myself a little more because of the respect that they showed me, and I am so grateful for that team and that project. As leaders and just overall people in society, the best way to show respect is to listen to another person's point of view and try to understand their perspective. With the various projects and people that I've worked with and for, I have found that when we are all able to express our side of things fully and with respect, whether we agree or not, the result can be a better solution to the issue at hand or a better product to our customer and those that we serve. I believe another way to show respect is to not criticize the ideas and suggestions of others when you disagree. When listening to ideas and those suggestions, we should take into consideration that others have their own unique set of life experiences, which is why they perceive things in a certain way and why they have the ideas and suggestions that they do. Some of those to consider could be our upbringing, our childhood, the way we were raised. It could be our education that we've received. It could be our age or our gender. I think most of the time it is our work experience and our personal experiences that tend to shape who we are and who we become. Remember, listening to a person explain their side, their opinion, their idea does not mean you have to agree with them, but you might gain some new insights, opinions, and perspectives by doing so. So, to wrap this up, when each of us leaves here today, whether we're working with our colleagues, managing individuals, serving Hoosiers, or just in our everyday life, let's make sure we treat each other with respect, especially when we don't agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Her presentation kind of ties directly into where I'm getting ready to go, so that works out perfectly. My name is Rosita Floyd. I am the HELP Hoosier Healthwise Eligibility Manager, and I'm going to be doing my presentation today on my journey to becoming a new manager in a new agency altogether. And before I get started, I'll explain my background. I worked for Division of Family and Resources for over 25 years. So when I worked for this agency, I developed a set of skills necessary for that type of job because I'm in eligibility, I'm a social worker, and I'm there to help everyone. So my leadership style was more like cheerleading and just being compassionate, empathetic, all the things that it takes to be a good social worker, active listening. And I thought that all those skills, everything that I knew would just fit perfectly with becoming a manager here in OMPP, but that was not the case. So this is my journey before I took the DISC assessment and then after I took the DISC assessment. This is me after I came. I thought I knew everything. Nobody could tell me anything. Nobody could tell me what to do. I knew it all, but I found out very quickly that I did not. One of my first challenges was I came to a unit and the people I supervised knew more than me. And because, which later on I found out I'm an S, that didn't sit well. So what I did was I tried to do their job and my job as a manager. So in the end, of course, I became overwhelmed, and that's me. And at times I was like, is it a conspiracy against me? Why is this happening to me? I literally wanted to pull out my hair. But then Natural Born Pilot came and it really has saved my life. And it wasn't what I learned about the good things that I know about myself, because I'm a social worker. So I knew I had good active listening skill. I'm talkative, I'm all that. It taught me what my weaknesses were and the behavior of the other individuals and teams that I'm going to be working with. So whereas I thought this person might have been being direct, maybe confrontational, or just being nosy, they weren't. They on this scale, they may have been the opposite of what I am. So what it did teach me is that we all play a big part and we all have to work together. And where my weaknesses are, which one of them is I hate change, and Dr. Sullivan threw me one when she changed, and Dr. Dan came in. So I was like, oh, not another change. But it all worked out perfectly. And you just have to understand that everybody has their own different personalities, their own work styles and how they do things. And we're all one big team. So in the end, that's where we are. One person may have the ideal, you have a planner, you have a realization that we can all do this together. Talks about how to you learn how to motivate people, what tools to use. All this came from the DISC assessment. I'm just so happy that I've actually found out about that in good time. And you see, I have inner peace now as well. So all together, this makes us one big happy family. And you can see me up there. Okay, and that's it.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Shauna Frazier. I'm with the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning, and I'm a contract compliance manager. And today I would like to talk to you about the biometric screening. So every year, the state of Indiana incentivizes its employees to complete the biometric screening by offering a $100 gift card. I don't know about you all, but I strive each year to complete the screening, so I have extra money to spend on Amazon. I always have something under buy it later that's calling my name. But how many of us actually pay attention to the results of this screening? How many people use the results to make lifestyle changes to improve their life? If we listen to the results of this screening, we can take our health into our own hands and improve our health while greatly decreasing the likelihood of being diagnosed with certain health conditions in the future, or at least reducing the effects of those conditions. Of course, it did take me some time to understand that I needed to pay more attention to these results and take action. I began working with the state of Indiana in 2015, and each year I have completed my screening. And over these past few years, I have been told that my cholesterol is way higher than it should be. So every year I tell myself I am going to change my diet and make improvements. But within a week or two, I completely am back to my normal routine and have forgotten what my body is trying to tell me. This year, I'm finally listening. But what has changed? Why now? Well, with age comes wisdom, right? Of course, that's a part of it. But really, honestly, it was about hearing the same thing repeated to me year after year and being concerned that If I don't make changes, then the results are just going to get worse. The data doesn't lie, and neither do the doctors. The most recent doctor I met with really connected with me on a personal level and motivated me. She took the time to really explain how important it was for me to make lifestyle changes for a healthier future. She told me about how her and her husband incorporate salmon into their weekly dinner planning, and she gave me several different ideas to jazz it up since salmon gets boring really fast. She also encouraged me to come back during the month of February, which is Heart Health Month, so that I could check my cholesterol again and see how my levels have improved. She told me that she looked forward to seeing me. This discussion really empowered me to stop making excuses and take charge. But the doctors can tell us every time they see us that we need to make lifestyle changes, but ultimately the choice is up to us. We must listen to what the results are telling us and take steps to improve our outcomes. Take small steps. Make little changes now that can positively impact your future health status. They do not have to be dramatic changes that are unsustainable and have you craving a chocolate bar in the middle of the night while you're half asleep because you went cold turkey. Just start small. Make little changes that you can build over time. Look at the results and better understand where you may have moderate to high risk areas and research how you can improve them. For me, this means I am increasing my intake of fruits and leafy greens, mainly through making smoothies a few times a week. It is a trial and error process, but it is something I can commit to. I am also introducing the salmon into my diet and using some of those tips that the doctor gave me on how to cook it. I'm looking at nutritional labels when I go to the store, and now I actually understand what they mean. I'm decreasing my sugar and my sodium intake, decreasing, not eliminating. Again, just little steps to get you going in the right direction. And of course, exercise, dreaded exercise. You may not be able to change your health overnight, but if you're dedicated to improving your health, then positive changes will occur. You may have setbacks and you may have cheat days, but that's okay. Start fresh every day and continue to work on your goals to change behaviors that are in your control. I look forward to completing my next biometric screening, but not for the incentive this time, but rather for the results. The data that will help to inform my decisions on what I'm doing right and how I can do better. I hope the next time you complete your health screening, you use these results to make informed decisions to improve your health also. And if you need some salmon recipes, come see me.
Definitely. Oh, is it right? Okay. It's definitely not me, Justin. There we go. Hi, everyone. I am Jessica Harlan York, and I am the Bureau of Quality Improvement Services Director within DDRS. This makes me smile. I'm sure it makes you guys smile too, my 3 kids. So I promise you aren't going to die. So you're probably thinking, what am I possibly going to talk about? And I have some good animations that I cannot take credit for. I had someone in my office help me with that. But how others, oh, I think I went too far. Oh, no. Okay, good. Sorry. How others describe me. So these are some words that I've just heard throughout my life, traits, adjectives: passionate, talkative, confident, outgoing, opinionated, loud, inquisitive, which is my favorite, which is a strength-based way of saying she asks lots and lots of questions, especially when I was younger and at work. And here are some traits that I have used to describe myself in certain situations. So nervous, worrier, self-conscious, timid, self-doubt. And these are much different words that I don't really hear as much from other people, but that I would use to describe myself. And I've tried throughout my life to really hide these things, just worried that it would affect my job, certain social situations, things like that. So especially a lot of times when I would perform, and perform has looked differently. It's been, through cheerleading when I was in high school, through job performance, speeches, things like that. So again, these were things that when I would be in certain situations, I wouldn't tell anyone that I was having these things, having self-doubt, being self-conscious.
And because of that, it would cause a lot of physical, issues. So stomach aches, honestly, panic attacks in certain situations, especially, when I was younger. And as I've gotten older, not that I'm super old, but as I've gotten older, I've learned, certain coping skills, how to handle it. But honestly, just talking about it, sharing it with other people, especially because people don't always know that about me. And I think it's helpful they don't know to see maybe someone that you don't think struggles with those things, that they actually do maybe struggle with those things. And these pictures are going to come up, and it's going to take a second, so I'm just going to click. But again, these are certain situations in my life where it's caused anxiety and certain situations where it actually hasn't happened. So why these again are somewhat random, but kind of funny. As preparing for this TED Talk, obviously I had some anxiety. And some things that come out in my dreams, actually, and I call them my anxiety dreams. And it's somewhat of a running joke because I will come into work and say, hey guys, guess what my anxiety dream was last night? And so one in particular is when I was a cheerleader. This never happened, but I would have a dream that I would go out to perform a dance right in front of the whole school, which is, 1,000 people. And I would just stand there. The music would start and everyone around me would perform and I would just stand like this the whole time. So again, never happened, but it's just things like that. The shark one has to do with natural born pilots that I think Michael and Dan will find very funny. So as part of natural born pilots, we had to go through a physical obstacle course. Again, did not happen, but in part of that physical obstacle course ended where we had to jump into shark infested waters. And you did not have a choice, and you had to swim across this water, and you were forced to do it. And if you didn't graduate natural born pilots. It never happened, pretty outrageous, but just shows some of the things that will happen to me during my sleep when the anxiety plays out. And I can kind of use these to be funny. I mean, they're funny, and they, just bring some comic relief to something that's not always very funny. And finally, I just have some things to share that I honestly repeat to myself when I'm doing things like this, or again, just maybe things I don't necessarily want to do. You can do anything for 2 minutes. So especially with this is longer than 2 minutes, but I just keep reminding myself, it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes of your life, right? You can do it. Become comfortable being uncomfortable. Another one that I love, the 5x5 rule. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes upset by it. And finally, I promise you aren't going to die. So again, this is what I kept telling myself when I did this. Hopefully I wasn't going to fall off the stage. I wasn't going to come out here, hopefully not going to die. So again, just a little bit of words of wisdom as when I'm doing things maybe that are going to make me uncomfortable. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Michelle, and I am a subject matter expert with the Division of Family Resources Eligibility Training Team. And I'm also a mom to an 11-year-old boy who is transgender. And what that means is when my child was born, they were assigned female, and now they choose to identify as male. And this gives us a unique perspective navigating the world we live in. One of those experiences occurred when I went to register my son for his first year of middle school. Registration is done completely online, and there's no space to provide any preferred name and pronouns. So at the open house, I ask if they have a form that I can fill out. I am told that they will absolutely not change my child's name without court documentation. But that's not what I was asking them to do. I was asking them, simply asking them, not to dead name my son. Well, then I'm told, it's your responsibility. You need to email all of the teachers with this information. And I'm a little overwhelmed with that response. But luckily, I recognize a counselor that actually used to work for the children's elementary school. And I asked her for help. And she helped me. But then came parent-teacher conference, and I met with two of my son's teachers. Both of them dead named him and used wrong pronouns. And those were the only two classes he has problems in. And some people think that this is just paperwork. Well, recently at work, a large number of health coverage applications came in without a gender selection. And this brought about a discussion of gender identity and filling out forms. And that got me to thinking, how hard would it be for the school to have a form to fill out? And then I started thinking about the Hoosiers that the DFR serves and how they may feel without having a space to provide us with their preferred name and pronouns. Now, why does any of this matter? Well, it matters because one of the FSSA's values is inclusion. And as a leader, I want to make sure that everyone feels included. Dead naming and using wrong pronouns are microaggressions, and microaggressions are harmful to mental health. But inclusion reduces microaggressions. So I'll leave you with this question. Are you inclusive in your leadership? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessica Keys, and I am Deputy General Counsel with the Office of General Counsel. And I'm here today to talk about the 4 pillars of preschool wisdom. They apply today, I promise. So when I was in college, I worked summers as an assistant at a preschool. And the most brutal and honest feedback I've ever received in any job came from that group, median age 3. And they taught me a lot of things. So I wanted to share some that I learned during that time that I still use here today. The first is nourishment. The amount of meltdowns I've seen avoided with a handful of goldfish crackers and a powdered juice drink is too many to count. So if you're having a day, if you need to work on yourself a little bit, grab some goldfish or some coffee if you're more mature, take a walk around the building, find your neighbor and vent to them. Just take some time for yourself, focus back in on you. The second pillar of preschool is routine. So if you've ever seen 10 3-year-olds at a snack table like it's the Situation Room at a White House, it is because they've done that 10 times today already. And then they're going to go outside, and then it is story time, ad nauseum through the end of the day. Everything is scheduled. Now, again, the days get away from us. We can't always prepare everything, but try to stick to a routine if you can. So if it's first thing you check your email in the morning, or first thing you would never check your email in the morning, do something, have a touch point that can help you predict your day, help you kind of reduce the stress of the unknown that's just going to come at you that you can't control. Now, the third pillar is about trust and passion, and it comes with a story. So I walk in on one morning to one of the classes, and little boy Danny comes up to me and he says, "Hello, where are your keys?" And I said, "Well, they're in my purse." And he said, "Can I hold them?" And I said, "You may not, you are 3. And we thought we were okay. And the lead teacher kind of leaned in and she said, "Oh no, we give Danny our keys." And I said, "Well, okay." So I kind of like dig through my bag and hand Danny the keys, but like all day, I'm like, "I'm watching you." But every time I look over, Danny has these, like, it's the Fabergé egg. Like, he couldn't be taking better care of these keys. And I'm like, all right. So the end of the day, he hands them back and says, "Thank you." And we kind of go our separate ways. And the next day, Danny comes up to me again. And now he says, "Hello, are your keys in your purse?" Because he already knows the question's already been answered. And I said, "Yes, they are." And he said, "Can I hold them?" I said, "Okay." And I'm just watching a little less carefully this time. And by the end of the summer, I don't know that I could have found my way to my car or my house and had any keys ever without Danny handing me my keys at the end of the day, like a little like personal assistant helping me back to my car. And it was just so nice. And the thing that I took away from that is you're going to have something in your bag, right? It's your responsibility. Your name's on it. You're responsible for that. But somebody else may be super passionate about that project, and you may just be leaving it in your bag because you don't have time. You can't spend the time to really focus on that issue. So if it's in your bag, maybe offer your keys to somebody else. Lots of people in FSSA have given me a lot of keys that I've been very scared to hold, but I've tried to show. I will work carefully to protect them. I will do what I can. And if you're someone who has a passion for someone who wants to hold the keys, go find the person with the purse and ask them outright and tell them why you will do it and what you will do with it. And every single person I've run into that I've worked with in FSSA has had such passion and such protection over their subject matter and has cherished it so much that I would have never an ounce of doubt handing keys to anyone that I've worked with. So those are the 3 main pillars. I did promise 4, but this one comes with a caveat because of ethics. So not at work, but don't fight a nap time. It's a game changer. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Killian, a provider relations manager with the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. 9.5 years ago, I went through a period that was the most traumatizing in my life. The summer of 2012 caused me to question relationships I'd had since I was an infant and threw my whole life into chaos. I felt like an earthquake and a hurricane had hit me at the same time. What do you do when you don't know who you are anymore? You don't know who or what you can trust or what tomorrow will look like. Hopefully, you go to therapy. I was lucky to work with an amazing therapist, and after some time, she gave me an assignment that she called Weeds, Seeds, and Flowers. It forced me to classify events, relationships, and thoughts in my life into manageable units and change the way I let myself think about each of those elements. In 2012, I was in grad school in Boston, but I had spent the summer taking care of my elderly grandmother in Northern Indiana. Despite everyone's best intentions, it was a poor situation. I was manipulated by my extended family and hurt emotionally by everyone involved in the situation. It was the first time I had faced anything like this, and I did not know how to process what was going on, or how to advocate for myself to my family who still saw me as a child. Back in Boston, I was lost, but Weeds, Seeds, and Flowers helped me to find my way again. Who should I give my mental space and energy to? How should I mentally react when someone who is not serving me is asking for my time and energy? It was truly a perspective changing exercise. This is my painting from fall 2012. I am not an artist. It may be hard to see, but the yellowish things amongst the flowers are weeds. Weeds are people and things in my life that brought me down. For me, these were the most important to identify, especially the weeds that you can't just pull up and toss aside. Some family relationships will most likely always be in your life, and you can't just walk away from that person. But acknowledging that they are not positive in your life allows you to manage the time, effort, and space that you give to that weed. The exercise also allows you to recognize the weeds that you can just toss up and throw into the trash pile. The black lines represent seeds. Seeds are the relationships and things in your life that bring benefit to you, but are not yet fully developed. You may want or need to spend more time on them before they potentially can become flowers. Seeds help to identify where you can choose to expend a little extra energy. If it's a relationship, you may need to spend some time making that on the depth of that relationship, or maybe some healing needs to happen. If it's an idea or some other non-tangible, you may need to sit with that and do some planning. Flowers are people and things in your life that are positive. These rejuvenate you when you spend time with them. They add to your life, give you space to be yourself, and use your talents and gifts. And if a flower starts to wilt, you can easily determine if you need to spend time making that flower healthy again, or if you need to pull it up before it becomes a weed. I don't have the right gardening metaphor here, but sometimes a weed can turn back into a flower. When I painted this, one of the weeds is my relationship with my aunt. During that summer, she manipulated me and I was really hurt. But if I were to remake this today, she'd be a small flower. I haven't regained all of my trust in her, but we have talked through that hurt. That's the power of this exercise. It's easy to move through life, interacting with people and things that don't serve you, or taking for granted those that do. At the end of the day, you're mentally exhausted because you've given your energy to people that are weeds. Determining where you can rest in the flowers and where you're surrounded by seeds can provide immense relief. I challenge you to identify your own weeds, seeds, and flowers, and to do your part to be a flower in as many relationships as you can. One thing I do know, Natural Born Pilots has certainly been a flower for the past 6 months, and my leadership skills are a seed that I'll continue to work on. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm a local office manager with the Division of Family Resources on the south side of Indianapolis in Marion County. I want to talk to you today about investing in your team to reach your goals and what that would look like. Like most businesses during this time that's being coined the Great Resignation, we too find ourselves shorthanded, but with just as much work, if not more. Yet we've been able to achieve and maintain our objectives. We even made time to do other charitable works in our community. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need to fill our vacancies, because we do, and we are, one team member at a time. But that's the key, a team member, not just a warm body. That is our promise to the rest of our office. We do this by looking for individuals that share our purpose. We look for people who care about people with values that match our own. We want people that will help us meet the needs of the public to create a better tomorrow in which to live. This trait is in every one of our team members. But how do you harness that? We do it through respect and integrity. We listen to our team. When they have an idea, we look at it for practicality and efficiency. We implement it if at all possible. When they bring us a problem, we investigate it. In other words, we trust them. We trust their ideas and their judgment. And we show this trust through our commitment of time and resources, both of which, once invested, we can often not get back. In return for that, we ask that the team trusts us. As a leader, you must be mindful of that relationship because it's an easy one to abuse if you aren't careful. You may start out with the best of intentions, asking a reliable worker to do a task, but quickly overwhelm them with additional tasks and reports and calls, etc. And what started out with one task for your reliable worker is quickly turned into a nightmare. So we have to do our best to be good to our team. We need to communicate our needs and goals and not be afraid of trying different directions to get there. Since we're short on staff, we knew the holiday months were going to be incredibly difficult. So we called an office-wide meeting to tell them what exactly was in store. We told them what our plan was to mitigate impact and to let them know that we were open to other ideas. We told them the truth. We told them that everyone was going to be utilized to their full capacity, including the management team. And with this time of year being so intense, it can seem like the work is thankless. So we wanted to take the extra time to let the team know that they are appreciated, that even though things are rough right now, we are going to show up for them. And lastly, to foster this relationship of mutual investment and goal achievement, you must walk the walk. You must hold yourself to the same standard as you hold your team, or higher if you can. You must care about people and show it in your decision-making. I try to live this not just in my professional life, but in my personal one as well. My 17-year-old son, Aiden, is a straight A student in the National Honor Society. He's getting ready to become an Eagle Scout. He's a Letterman athlete and plays the violin in the advanced orchestra in his high school. He understands commitment and goals and the importance of modeling this behavior for others, like his 7-year-old brother. My youngest son, Nico, is already a straight A student who just joined Cub Scouts. He plays soccer and he can't wait to play a musical instrument too. These things don't happen by accident. You can't wait for a better tomorrow to happen. You must create the better tomorrow by what you choose to do today. Thank you.
I imagine that most every person in this room recognizes the one and only Britney Spears. Maybe you can even name a few tunes as well. She's been in the news a lot lately, but not for her catchy tunes or for a new album, but she has been in the news for this word, guardianship or conservatorship. Guardianship or conservatorship, I'll just call it guardianship today, is essentially where someone else legally takes over your life. I want to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Kathleen Altavogt. I work in the Division of Aging and Adult Protective Services and also in our adult guardianship program. This is a topic I feel very passionate about,
And despite the glib title, I actually love guardianships in the right situations and with the proper protections. Today, I hope I can get you to understand why we should all care about this topic, and hopefully you'll learn a little something. So first on our journey, we're going to meet April Parks. Speaking of being in the news, she is the inspiration for the Netflix movie I Care a Lot. So April Parks was a guardian in Nevada, and her MO was, and this was legal, she would find elderly people who were vulnerable, go to the court, say these people need an emergency guardianship. She didn't have to give notice because it was emergency in Nevada at the time. So she would knock on this person's door and say, hey, I have this piece of paper from a judge. I'm your guardian now. Get out of your house. I'm taking you to an assisted living facility today, even though you don't know me from Adam. I now control almost every aspect of your life. So kind of a nightmare scenario. She also ended up stealing about $500,000 from her clients, and she ended up facing 200 felony charges and up to 40 years in prison. So this is a really excellent example of how things can go super duper wrong in a guardianship. And this is an example of why I feel passionate about it, because the power imbalance, you have the guardian up here and the person who's protected down here, and can create a situation that's ripe for abuse, neglect, and exploitation. So I want to go ahead and maybe surprise you. And this is something I don't think people realize, despite hearing about Brittany in the news, is when you are in a guardianship, and this is not true in all situations, but most of the time, generally, when you are in a guardianship, any of you in this room, you will lose the ability to vote. You will not be able potentially to decide where you live. You will not potentially be able to decide where you work. So bye FSSA, everybody. You will not be able to decide if or whom you're going to marry without permission from your guardian. You will not be able to decide what to do with your own hard-earned money. And the one that I think is one of the worst is you may not be able to see your loved ones anymore. And the one that Britney Spears found herself in as a real catch-22 is, in a guardianship, you may not be able to hire an attorney to get out of it, even though you feel like you're being abused or it's not appropriate for you anymore. Real catch-22 there. So hopefully I've surprised you with that today, or maybe you already knew that, but hopefully this is a little bit of food for thought as to why we need to have a guardianship system with some good protections. They actually call guardianship a legal death because you don't have any more civil rights anymore. They've been stripped away. Here's the good news though. I can tell you as somebody who works in this field, the vast majority of guardians are good people. They care a lot about their clients, and that's wonderful. But we can do better, right? And so there are many things, too numerous to name of how we could do better, but a few things. One, we do need to require, I believe, that a medical professional who has experience and capacity evaluates this person and says, yes, they can't make decisions anymore. We should also have a higher bar of evidence to get into these kind of situations. And the courts who grant these should have more resources to monitor, to make sure there's not abuse, neglect, and exploitation happening. There should be more access and information about supported decision-making. And then finally, each and every person in this room, you all need to get your healthcare representative together and your power of attorney. So if, God forbid, you're in a car accident and get a TBI, you at least have some power of over what happens to you, and when you lose capacity. So I feel very passionate about this topic. Like I said, I hope I've caused you to think a little bit. And coming full circle, I do want to mention that after 13, almost 14 years under a conservatorship/guardianship, our friend Britney Spears is finally free Britney, yay. And her life is no longer like her famous song, her life is no longer toxic. Thank you. Ta-da.
Being a leader does not mean doing everything yourself. However, I have always struggled allowing others to help me. This can be from a small task to a large project. If I'm the only one responsible, then I know when something is done or even how it was done. If my name is on it, I want things done right and executed in the best possible way. So relying on others to hold up their end of the bargain has always been a little challenging for me. So for me, I've always said it's just easier for me to do things myself. Sure, I'll do it. I'll take on another task. I got it. No need to help. When in reality, it's actually harder on me. The associated feelings of stress and being overwhelmed from taking on too much, sometimes I don't even realize until it's past the point of no return. And I'm irritable and don't even know where to begin because my stack of to-dos has grown so large. I like to stay busy. Don't get me wrong, as I feel there's always something I could be doing. However, there is a fine line where it's just too much and you feel frozen, not even knowing which direction to go to tackle the mountain of to-dos. Getting myself in these situations would most likely have been minimized if I would have just allowed others to help. You know, maybe these feelings of needing to do everything myself stems from my turbulent and unstable childhood in which I did not have much parental support and encouragement. I grew up in poverty and in my formative years lived in some bad neighborhoods and attended several schools. I'm not sharing this because I want pity, just to relay that if I ever wanted something done, I had to take the initiative, whether it be getting good grades, making the right life choices, or having something new. Everything was on me. I even began working at the age of 14 and have not stopped. Since then, everything I have achieved has been by my own merit. Being able to trust that others in my work and personal life will actually follow through with things, with helping me, with whatever it may be, has been a work in progress. However, I've come to realize that those offering help truly want to help and gain their own personal value by helping me. Just as I get the same feeling by doing for others, I would much rather do for others than myself. Need to practice what I preach, right? As a leader, I've been able to take a step back and allow my professional and personal teams to work with me to complete tasks, achieve goals, work on various projects, cook, clean the house, not load the dishwasher because I'm the only one that can do that right. But in all seriousness, giving up some of the reins has allowed me to take some of the weight off my shoulders while allowing others to grow and learn at the same time, whether this be my coworkers or my children. If I'm not letting them help, how can they learn to do some of these things for themselves and take on the lead? Even though it's still hard for me to ask for help, I am now more often able to accept it. I know allowing my team, my family, and my friends to offer help only benefits us all. Human instinct drives us to want to help others, to give to others, and to do for others. Thank you for allowing me to share some of my growth towards becoming a better leader. Have a wonderful day and happy holidays.
Hello, my name is Nicole Scott, and I'm a state eligibility manager within the Division of Family Resources. And my journey started here earlier this year when my regional manager let me know that she had nominated me for the Natural Born Pilots program. And I was not happy about it. And then I got the email that said I had been selected. And then I was terrified. This moment right here is that reason for both of those. I don't speak in front of people, but I thought about it and I thought, what is the purpose of the program? And to me, it was to help me become a better manager and a better employee. And what type of an employee would I be if I didn't take this opportunity? So one of my favorite things that we did is probably our second or third meeting, we did the DISC assessment. And I've kept this on my desk every day since then. The DISC assessment, it helps, it identifies your communication style, but it also helps you show how to communicate with those both in writing and verbally with those with different communication styles than your own. It also tells you what you may see as a strength, but someone else could see as a weakness though. Another topic we discussed one day was being present in the conversation. I found after that, when I came back to the office, there's times I'd be working at my computer, someone would walk up to my door, ask me a question, walk away, or I'd answer them. They would walk away, and I never even looked up from my computer screen. And I thought I really need to be more present in the conversation and give these individuals the respect that they deserve. But then I wanted to also take this whole opportunity and think of how could I not only become a better manager and a better employee, but how could I be better for those around me? So the first thing I thought of is I could be a better spouse. My husband farms, he just finished up harvest the day before Thanksgiving. And he knows I go to work all day. When I get done, I get the kids, get him to piano and practice, get him dinner. He never asks anything of me. But I've made sure I've asked him every day, can I bring you dinner? Unless he's going to be out late, or sorry, come home early. And he says, no, I'm not going to be out that late tonight. They usually say, oh, I don't care, whatever. And I try to make sure I get him dinner every night. It's probably not a homemade meal, and it's probably from a drive-through, but he's not having to wait until he's home late at night. I also thought I could be a better parent. We have 2 boys. This is my older son. And I want him to always know that he will be made a priority for us and that we will support him no matter what. So I've made sure we are at every basketball game, baseball game. This is his band concert he just had, his piano recitals. We will be there and we will support him no matter what. My younger son, he gets dragged along to all these activities. And I want him though to know that he is equally as important and we will always make time for him as well. And sometimes that's just coloring in our jammies before bedtime. Another way I thought I could be better is a better parent within the community, or excuse me, within the school system. So yesterday I was on a field trip. Next week, I will be helping make gingerbread houses. I know that that'll help the teacher out, and my son will also know that I want to be there for him. But most recently, one thing I will say that I really became aware of is I also need to be better to myself. I need to know that I have surrounded myself with those who care for me, are cheering me on, and want the best for me. And I need to give myself that grace and know all will be well. So I'm here today to encourage each of you to see how you can be better for those around you and to yourself. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caleb Slocum. I'm the Physical Plant Operations Manager for FSSA. I want to talk to you guys today a little bit about willpower, compassion, and shoelaces. More specifically, bootstraps. The phrase, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and why I detest it so much. See, for those of you who don't know me very well, I've had a bit of a troubled life. I have an ACE score of 9. For those of you who don't know what that means, I went through some rather troubling experiences when I was young. I grew up in a violent household. Our family had substance abuse problems, which led to some poor decisions on my part. When I was in high school, I found myself homeless. When I couldn't couch surf, I found myself sleeping outside, eating out of dumpsters, while still trying to work and go to school. Thankfully, at separate times, a couple of families took me in, saw me through to graduation. Then I tried to do the thing you're supposed to, tried to go to college, almost had a free ride. But due to family issues, that was denied me. So, still persevering, still having that willpower, I did the next thing you do. I went to the Army, where I screwed up my leg. and then got discharged for asthma. After that, I ran afoul of the worst people you can imagine. Soon after that, everything good in my life was taken from me. And that is when I fell to despair. And in the bottom of a bottle, I spent the next several years in a drunken haze. I met my wife, Megan, and she showed me that life didn't have to be as bad as I had experienced it, that it could be better. But this by itself wasn't enough to pull me out of the state I was in yet. It took another person, someone I met while I was working retail pharmacy. She has asked to remain nameless, but she works over at the health department. She saw potential in me. She helped me get a job with the state. At that point, my recovery began. Suddenly, my life had a future. It had potential that I never imagined possible. Since then, I've moved from being a stores clerk to working directly for the deputy secretary of the single most important agency in our state. Because someone else had compassion and helped elevate me from where I was, I now get to stand here talking to you today. I get to work for an agency that at the core of what we do is enacting compassion for others. We help people like me. And I can't think of anything more noble or more beautiful than that. Because it isn't your force of will, it isn't your bootstraps that get you to where you need to be. Yes, those things are important. But what really matters is whether or not someone else sees that potential and helps you get to where you need to be. And it's my hope that when you leave here today, you think to yourself, how can I be that other person for someone else? How can I enact that compassion? Thank you.
I never thought that I would be addicted to crack cocaine. And even though I used to tell myself that I didn't look like those people, I was just as addicted as they were. I had a friend who was a drug dealer. So being young, dumb, and stupid, we tried it. And before I even knew that I was addicted, I was addicted. I liked to dress. I had a favorite outfit that I used to love this outfit. One day I woke up and put that outfit on and the pants fell off. They just slid off me with no belt or anything. And when I looked in the mirror, the first thing I thought to myself was, you were not raised this way. Your mother did not raise you to be an addict. So it was then that I knew that I needed help and that I needed to do something, that my life had to change. But from what I had seen in the African-American community, so many people went to rehab and they come back out and they're doing the same thing. I just packed up all my clothes, all my belongings. If it wasn't for my family, I don't think I would have made it. When you have an addiction, you feel shame, you feel bad, you feel judged, you feel labeled, you feel like people are looking down upon you. People need to understand that this is a disease and there's recovery and there's treatment out there. So when you see somebody that has an addiction, what you need to do is just tell them, hey, I'm here for you. When you're ready, I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, wear the crown. I'm lucky to be alive. Recovery is possible. There's hope, and hope means recovery for everybody.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tony Toomer, and I work for the Indiana Division of Mental Health and Addiction. I am the opioid treatment program manager, and me and my team oversee and regulate all the OTPs in the state of Indiana. And that was my Emmy award-winning public service announcement. Thank you. Although that PSA might be new, the story's not new. That's what I want to talk to you today, is about the stigma surrounding addiction recovery. When you are in addiction, when you're in your active addiction, that's what I call the pits of shame. That's where you feel that everybody's looking down on you. That's where you're really, really feeling bad. And that's where it's hard for you to get your life back together because you're so down. Then all of a sudden, you move from the pit of shame to the group of shame. And what I call the group of shame is once you decide to get treatment, you go into treatment, and that's where you get with the group of other people just like you. And you learn about the shame, the stigma, and you really, really realize about all the harm that you've caused to your family, your friends, and your loved ones. But sooner or later, you get through it. You move from the pits of shame to the group of shame, and then you finally realize everything is okay, and then you move on to the walk of shame. And that's when you think that everything is great, and you move on with your life. And that story, again, the walk of shame, for the last 25 years, I've been in the walk of shame. I've been living a life here at the Division of Mental Health and Addiction, and nobody knew because I was still ashamed. So the shame of addiction, it doesn't stop when you get out of treatment. It continues with you because you're still ashamed, and you don't want your coworkers to know because you don't want them to look at you differently. You're afraid to tell anybody because you feel that you won't get promoted. No one will pay attention to you. No one will take you serious. So the shame of addiction, it doesn't just stop after treatment. It continues on until you're able to break that wall of shame and live your life. And the Division of Mental Health gave me that opportunity. They gave me that opportunity to be able to tell my story and break that wall of shame to where I can really, really be true to myself so I can be true to others. And so that's how that commercial became a public service announcement. I was given the opportunity to tell my story and that is what broke me from the chains of shame and guilt and addiction. But one of the things I would like to make sure that we take for everybody else to understand is that everybody has a story. There's a story out there that everybody can tell, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about addiction, but we all have some type of life experience. We all have a story that we can tell that can help the next person. So I'm hoping today, that PSA gave me the opportunity and the platform to tell my story. And today, this TED Talks, again, gives me a chance to back that up. So I am honored and privileged to be here today to encourage and inspire others to tell your story, speak up, and help somebody else and encourage them to tell their story. That's what all these TED Talks are about today, is to inspire and encourage everybody else to stand up and tell their story. Thank you.
Sorry. Before I begin, I do want to note that my talk contains sensitive subject matter and references child abuse, so please do take care of yourself if you need to. I've only fainted once in my life, and I'll say more about that in a minute. But participating in Natural Born Pilots brought to mind the first time in my career when I needed to step up and fly the plane, and what I've learned since. I'm very proud to be part of the social work profession. The principles of the profession have always resonated deeply with me. Things like honoring the dignity and worth of every person, addressing social problems and challenging social injustices, and helping people in moments of need. One experience that truly shaped me as a social worker happened early in my career when I was about 22 years old and I was working at a foster care agency in another state. A particularly challenging case involved twin toddlers who had experienced physical abuse while they were infants when they were home alone in the care of their 18-year-old father, who became very distressed and overwhelmed by their cries. While one twin was making a full recovery, the other twin sustained a traumatic brain injury. On that particular day, it was my job to transport this now toddler for a medical appointment for a routine check of the injuries she had sustained months earlier. I remember picking her up and carefully buckling her into her car seat so as not to disturb her feeding tube or her hearing aids or any of the other medical equipment that we had along with us. We arrived at the clinic and everything was going fine with the appointment until the very end when she started having a significant seizure, which happened on occasion. Thankfully, the doctor and nurses were right there to help her manage through it. But in that moment, the gravity of the situation and her experience really started to overwhelm me. My ears started ringing, my vision went blurry, and I remember thinking to myself, do not pass out, Elizabeth. You have a job to do. You have a plane to fly. This little one needs you. So I was able to take a few deep breaths, grab a drink of water, regain my composure, pull myself back together before the medical team even knew that there was anything going on with me. And they were able to stabilize her, and I was then able to transport her home back to her foster family safely. And that evening, my roommate asked me, "How was your day?" And all I could say was, "Well, I didn't pass out today." And that phrase truly became my mantra over the next several years of being in the field of social work. And on my hardest of days, reminding myself, I didn't pass out today. And as a leader, I've learned that the commitment to simply showing up day in and day out and being present and remembering to breathe and bearing witness to others around you, that in and of itself can be enough, even on the days when the obstacles feel insurmountable, when the trauma feels unbearable. That commitment just to showing up is leadership. And in the event that you do actually pass out, that's okay too. It happens. Be sure to surround yourself with competent and caring individuals who will catch you on your way down. That was true for me when I fainted on the day that I gave birth to our first child. It was a long, difficult labor and delivery, but luckily my husband and a wonderful nurse were there to catch me. They literally had my back. But I share all this because this little one's story I've carried with me, and it motivated me to go on and seek further training in infant, early childhood, and family mental health, which studies attachment theory, addressing trauma, promoting generational mental health, and building resilience in families. And all of these things are things that we are aiming to do here at FSSA with the new Indiana Pregnancy Promise Program, where I'm very grateful to be surrounded by an incredibly competent, caring team who literally built this new program from the ground up. And I like to think built the plane that we now fly together. Thank you.
Whew.
It's so nice to hear them in the background, like congratulating each other. That is truly spectacular. I took a note just quickly on what I took away. And this is just what I took away because I guarantee you all took away something different. So what you can learn when you stop trying to win. The importance of building and maintaining your name. How we are the intersections of all of our social categories and making sure that we use our power to guarantee that everyone has a voice. That disagreement and respect are not mutually exclusive. The value of knowing yourself, listening to your own data. I loved, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes being upset by it. Creating space for everyone, not just on forums, but also where we work and live. Letting others hold your keys, that you don't have to keep everything in your bag. The value of providing a taxonomy to relationships and things in your life so that you are intentional about spending more time with the seeds and the flowers. That we don't, as an agency and as divisions, fill vacancies, we fill team members, and we are on that team. That what Free Brittany taught us about guardianships, I will tell you, like watching that, like that was really informative. And then how we need to think about them, and more importantly, how we need to protect them as an agency. That self-reliance means trusting and relying on others. That being better can be an intentional choice, and that you need to look for the potential of other people and in other people, and that might just save someone's life. That you should tell your story and help break the wall of shame. How to keep standing when you want to pass out, and making sure that you're there to catch others when they do. So just like truly an amazing group of talks. I hope through this that all of the pilots like not only took away something personally, but more importantly, took away relationships. Because really in the end, leadership is not about being by yourself. It's about the relationships you build and the people you rely on. So I hope for them throughout their career here or anywhere they go, that they keep these personal relationships, keep in touch with one another, rely on one another, and as us, that we do the same. So thank you all for another amazing Natural Born Pilots. To Michael and Jen for getting this started, to Reiko, to Susie, to Maggie, to all the folks at Acaso that keep this going, to Jim, Ted, Alan, Kylie, and all the folks who make this possible. Come back to these talks. Feel free, I think, to share them with others. They were amazing. You are amazing. Thank you. Now get to work. No.
Well, they really did a great job on the time. I can't tell them. They did a great job on the time. Right on. Okay. A couple of those audios were a little low, but the only way to control it is on this computer. Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Well, how do you? He's played. Yeah, it needs to be torn down. Also, I can play music before, so people go, well, we have to turn the volume down for 2 hours. And then when all of a sudden it started, and I didn't have a chance to go out there and change it. And so I was hoping that the sound would be okay, but it wasn't really low. Tony's was the only one that was low. Yeah, the lady in Evansville, she was fine. Good, okay, so it was just Tony's. Oh, yeah, she sounded good in there. Okay. I didn't know how to fix it. Yeah, the only way is right there, and I didn't want to come out. I also didn't know if Tony had intended to start this video. He did. He did. He changed it the last minute. Yeah. I thought it'd be more dynamic to have that plan than finish to that. Good. Well, we also shot it at high def, so you should have done it. Yeah. Put it on the post, but yeah, so I had Tyler recorded in high def. So I mean, some of the footage are the sixth grade just a lot of people.
Tickets
Well, I
back there.
guess, yeah, those tags. Those
They
are-
say-
Yeah, they belong to you.
Okay.
I guess it's taking me around for a while. Yep.
I'm gonna try and get.
Stand out. When I do the, yeah, when I do the curls, it makes them. Sorry. Oh, boy. We're good, we're good.